Live from San Francisco, it's Rex Broadcasting Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on!
How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. The next 2 hours talking pro wrestling, and we'll also be talking some mixed martial arts. In the second hour, our guest is going to be Dana White, the president of Zuffa, which is Ultimate Fighting Championship. We're going to be talking about the Ken Shamrock Tito Ortiz match. If you want to talk about that or anything related to the Ultimate Fighting Championship, then that will be up in roughly an hour and 15 minutes. And first hour, of course, professional wrestling. We've got Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly here. We also have a couple of open phone lines, so I want to get those all filled. We got several people on hold, but I want to get these lines filled. 1-800-878-PLAY. That's 1-800-878-PLAY. We can talk about any subject having to do with professional wrestling in the first hour. I also remind you that Tuesday a week at 10 p.m. Eastern Test, we just had Roddy Piper on last week, and it was quite the show. So if you didn't have enough of Roddy Piper talking about his book, it's going to be back Tuesday. And then Thursday at 11 p.m., I'm going to be on Sports Byline USA. So 11 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. Pacific. So anyway, that's the deal there. I guess the biggest news of the week is the sale of NWA TNA. It's been something that's been talked about, no surprise, to Panda Energy out of Dallas. And I don't know what that's really going to mean. I mean, it'll probably mean something. We've seen the experience of a company that is not, with no background in wrestling, running wrestling companies, been good. And at least with TBS, they owned a television station. This group does not even own a television station. And, NWA TNA, until they get television, they're not going to get much bigger than they are. Television's the key to all of this. In fact, that's something that we're going to talk to Dana White about as well. Also, the death of Yukon Moose Cholak, who, for those fans in Chicago who are probably in their late 30s or older, probably remember him very fondly. Not really a great wrestler, but local Chicagoland character, definitely one of those great characters of the old days of 1960s wrestling, a 400-pound guy when there were only a couple of guys in the whole business that were 400 pounds, and that was enough to be a gimmick. He used to come to the ring, giant moose antlers. Brian, do you ever hear of Moose Cholak?
I did not, actually, until he passed away this week.
Oh, so you didn't know about him. Yeah, I'd seen him wrestle a couple of times late in his career, and actually, it would have been late in his career when I saw him, and not really a very mobile guy, just kind of like a big guy, and with a moose call and everything like that. Definitely from another era of wrestling, I guess is the best way to put it.
Or an indie area of wrestling, because we had a moose up here.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did he have big moose headgear?
Had one. What was that?
Did he wear big moose headgear?
No, he did it with his hands, actually.
Did he do a big moose call when he would make his comeback?
Unfortunately not.
Okay, because that's what Moose Cholak was most famous for. Anyway, we're going to go hit a break right now. We're going to come back. We're going to start. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. We're here every Sunday night for 2 hours talking pro wrestling, and we also have, of course, Dana White on in our second hour, president of Zuffa Ultimate Fighting Championship. We'll be talking about the big match with Ken Shamrock and Tito Ortiz, which comes up on November the 22nd from Las Vegas. And this week in pro wrestling, one of the matches that was announced for, it hasn't been, I guess, officially announced on television. It'll be officially announced tomorrow night as far as Shawn Michaels pretend, but WWE has already sent out a match listed in Shawn Michaels being in the match. So Shawn Michaels is going to be in there with Kane, Shawn Michaels, Rob Van Dam, Booker T, Triple H, and Chris Jericho in a six-way in the, the Elimination Chamber, which we're also, I think, going to find out tomorrow night on Raw what the Elimination Chamber is. It's some sort of a new gimmick. And I tell you, when I first heard it, I was kind of surprised about Shawn Michaels' name. Actually, I was surprised about everything. But what surprised me, when it came, it reminded me a year ago or so, they had come to, it was I guess it would have been last summer, so a little over a year ago. They had come to Mick Foley, and they wanted Mick Foley to come out of retirement, man tag, and that's one of the reasons why Mick Foley and them kind of had their falling out, was because Mick Foley said, I retired, I'll come out of retirement maybe once, maybe twice. Why should it, why should it be in a 10-man tag? I mean, it should be in a single match. It should be a big feud. it means nothing. And that's what I was thinking with Shawn Michaels. If Shawn Michaels really has 1 or 2 matches left, why is he in a match where, his participation isn't really going to help because it's so unfocused?
Yeah. I was thinking, maybe this is Hunter's time to get his big win back, and they didn't want to pin Kane or something like that or whatever. But I'm just looking at, I want to know how they approached him because, he's done it at WWE.com talking about, I may do one more at WrestleMania, but that's pretty much it. And I think he was being honest in all his interviews, so I think this is just something where, last week they went, well, we'd like you in this match, and he probably just thought, well, I probably can't turn him down, and I got to do this, and now he's kind of stuck with it.
And they probably told him, well, it's a 6-way, so, you don't really have to do that much.
Yeah.
Something. I don't know.
But it is a total waste.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't think you get a lot of value out of Michaels being there. You get a little bit, but it's not that, I don't know. Especially coming...
I don't think this is going to sell any additional pay-per-views, because I don't think anyone's going to actually believe that there's a chance of him winning the title. And, maybe some people will buy it just to see him work again, and there's a lot of people that want to see Shawn and Rob Van Dam, but, I just don't think it's going to mean much.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, I don't know that a lot of people are going to be buying the pay-per-view because, even though, I think they did a great job the last 2 weeks with the Big Show, but, it's still the Big Show.
Yeah.
And Brock Lesnar is with a babyface turn that hasn't really, I don't want to say it hasn't taken, but it's not, I don't think it was all that dramatic.
Well, the whole thing with the Big Show, when I was watching the show, if they had done this when Big Show first debuted, or if he hadn't been buried forever, he would be really over as a killer right now.
Yeah.
But instead, everything that they did, every angle they did, every word that came out of Paul Heyman's mouth, you would listen to it and you would go, I cannot possibly believe this because I just saw Big Show lose to Booker T and Hardy and 65,000 other guys over the last 2 years, and I can't take any of this seriously. I don't know how fans can either. And, it's not going to sell pay-per-views, but for what they've tried with the Big Show, I'll give them that. From everything from, the push he's gotten to covering his entire body in a black outfit and stuff like that, but it's still the Big Show.
Okay, now we got, the other part is that they'll probably go with the Elimination Chamber as the last match, partially just politically because they've had the SmackDown match last on the last couple of pay-per-views.
Yeah.
But Brock Lesnar and Big Show, there's a certain standard of main events in the WWE on pay-per-view. And I don't know that...
It's not going to...
I just remember those, when Big Show was the champion, a big boss man. And that might have been, right up there with the worst title matches on pay-per-view in the last couple of years.
Yeah. Was Hunter and Vince for the title at one show?
I don't think that was a title match. I think that was a street fight.
Okay, because that was really horrible, too. But, yeah, that's...
Well, that was horrible because it was somebody's idea to do a 30-minute match.
I think that as long as Brock gets him up there and gives him the F5, people will at least forgive it if it's really bad.
As long as it doesn't go like 20 minutes.
Which I don't think they'd be stupid enough.
Yeah, hopefully if they keep it 8 minutes and Brock does, 1 or 2 suplexes in F5, I think people will be satisfied. But if he does that, then what do you do next with Brock?
Yeah. Well, this is the same problem. We talked about this right after SummerSlam when they were going with Undertaker, which was, okay, you did such a great job building as, the build to SummerSlam was going on. So when SummerSlam was over, that other guy that was being built up was ready to be put in that spot next to Brock. Which they didn't do. And it's the same thing they're doing right now. Okay, you're building up Big Show, but is there somebody else that you're building up so when this show's over, you have somebody for Brock? I don't think there's anybody that they're...
that you're really planning, months ahead.
But you would think after making the mistake a few times, somebody might go, maybe next time we need to do this.
Yeah. But
this is the first time and they're being caught off guard.
Yeah. But I look at how many times have I been told that, the really big one that they want to build to is Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle. And yet, if you watch Kurt Angle week in and week out, he's still being treated like just, any other tag team wrestler.
Yeah.
50%. He lost Eddie Guerrero, set up something else. He'll win some,
Well, I think the way they look at it is, if this is their long-term plan, they figure, okay, we'll just save this as opposed to starting to build toward now. And then in January, whatever, they'll start to push. I don't think they look at it as, okay.
Kurt Angle. And yet, if you watch Kurt Angle week in and week out, he's still being treated like just, any other tag team wrestler.
Yeah.
50%. He lost Eddie Guerrero, set up something else. He'll win some,
Well, I think the way they look at it is, if this is their long-term plan, they figure, okay, we'll just save this, as opposed to starting to build toward now, and then in January, whatever, they'll start to push. I don't think they look at it as, okay, this is the long-term plan, so we're going to start 6 months ahead. I think they just look at it as, okay, if this is going to be the long-term plan, then we
teasing it in every interview.
Yeah.
You know, just small teases, though. Because
I do think that what they've done is, if you watch all of Kurt Angle's matches lately, he'll always start out with some amateur stuff at the beginning, and I think that that's like a real subtle thing that they're doing to lead towards it. And I think they should do the same thing with Brock, but, you know, then you'll have at least something to look back on.
Okay, we are going to start. We got a full 100-878 play. Ed in San Antonio, you're first up. What's going on?
For letting me get on with Roddy Piper last week. I was pretty much blown away by how honest he was answering my question.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was a pretty good interview. I thought he rambled a little bit, but I thought he was pretty good. What were your thoughts on his interview?
I mean, I was personally entertained by it, and I guess that's all I was really hoping for.
I think that he was honest, at least that he thought that he was being honest about what he said, if that makes any sense. Like, I think if you look back at the buy rates, I don't think him and Hogan broke any records.
They didn't.
But I think that he believed that, so, you know.
He may have been told that, you know.
Yeah, so I don't think he was, you know, blatantly about everything he said, but, you know, it's just like anybody. They might have memories about something that maybe aren't completely accurate.
Yeah, kind of like Hogan.
Yeah. Budokan.
At Budokan. Well, a lot of Hogan stuff.
Okay, but what I really wanted to ask was about the ratings. Since Vince it seemed like, I guess, he was the only one pushing for this angle, and it just totally blew up in his face.
Well, Kevin Dunn was pushing for it, and I think Brian Gewirtz was as well. But, I mean, the rating was real bad on Monday night. It was 3.45. It was, it was one of the lower ones in the last couple of years. And, you know, part of it, no doubt, was the fallout from the week before. Part of it was because Monday was a bad show. And part of it is you know, the product is very cold. SmackDown did a bad number, and, you know, some of that might have been Halloween, and I guess how much of it was Halloween and wasn't, we'll know this coming week.
Okay, so since a couple weeks ago they wanted to change and go toward the soap opera storylines, are we going to see a continuation? Or are they going to try and maybe make it more like SmackDown? What can we expect tomorrow?
I don't know. I don't know what the reaction was, because they did not expect a ratings drop. They did, or Vince anyway was expecting a ratings rise with the storyline, and it did not happen. And I don't think it will happen. The crowd should have told them, because the crowd from the very beginning in Vegas when you know, they started with the Katie Vick thing, and you're a murderer, and then in Montreal with that, you know, which is usually a hot crowd, with it not getting over, and told them that this direction just isn't going. How Vince will react to that, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how he's going to. I think that tomorrow's show is going to be very interesting.
And I don't even know if Raw can even be like SmackDown, because it's a totally different group of people writing it. I mean, even if Vince went up to Brian Gewirtz and said, I want this more like SmackDown, who's to say that Brian will even know how to do that?
And also, the other thing is they don't have the horses.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, SmackDown's got, you know, loaded up with the good workers, so you can have great matches. Raw, I mean, you look at the depth. I mean, I tell you what, you know, the depth in the company, you know, for all this time it was like the greatest, you know, roster of talent ever. But right now, when I look at the Raw side, I don't see much talent. Enough talent for a 2-hour show, quite frankly. I mean, you see all that filler stuff.
And the guys are just totally wasted.
Yeah.
All the faces pretty much are pretty upper mid carders.
Yeah.
The way they're positioned. Do you think Brian Gewirtz? Do you think his job is in danger anytime soon?
Yeah, I think it could be, but you know, one of the things, in the 6 Pac interview in the Torch that was this week, where they were talking about it. I mean, the one thing is working for Vince McMahon as a writer is hell. I mean, everyone who's done it will tell you that, and you have no life, and you know, because because Vince works so darn hard that it's impossible to keep up with him, and to get a guy like that, I mean, all these people want to be writers, but they don't seem to be able to keep the pace up, and Brian can keep the pace up. I don't know, but you know, he's got more heat than anyone in the company. That's the truth. I hear that from everyone. We got to head to a break, okay, Ed?
Okay, no problem.
Okay, we'll be back with everyone's phone calls right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
I am here on the Sports Byline Radio Network, the Wrestling Observer. If you smile like the brain, you'll do it.
Okay. Welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. And we talk about this every week. If you are new and you have never read either the Wrestling Observer newsletter or Figure 4 Weekly, they are the two best, I guess, insider weekly pro wrestling newsletters out there. You can go to www.wrestlingobserver.com and on ordering little click things that you can click on to order either newsletter. I do the Wrestling Observer newsletter every week. All the inside information from all over the world in detail. Brian does Figure 4 Weekly, which has, tons of news and great humor. Best TV reviews you're going to read. Even if the TV show stinks, the one good thing about a bad TV show is you get to read what Brian thought of it a couple of days later, and I guess that's about the only thing. You're not watching AAA anymore, I notice.
No, I gave up on that a long time ago, actually.
Yeah. I used to love those reviews.
They became too much for me.
Yeah. Well, I can understand why that show was terrible, but I heard that the EMLL this week was a repeat.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet. I was going to get a tape tonight.
Yeah, it was not there.
Actually, you know what? If Ultimo Dragon actually is working AAA and ends up on TV, I may have to break my ban of AAA.
I would too.
See,
if I could find out when that's going to air.
Yeah.
I saw his comeback.
I think tonight he was. Tomorrow he's working.
Yeah. And Super Crazy started with EMLL last week.
Yep.
So we should be seeing him. I can't wait to see Super Crazy at Arena Mexico working with all the different guys that they got there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a different form of wrestling. If you never tried it out, it's on Galavision every Saturday and Sunday afternoon. The Saturday show is usually an old show. Sunday show is a new show. But it's a lot of good high-flying wrestling. And, of course, those of you who watch ECW know about Super Crazy. The guy was guy's a tremendous talent. The thing
about wrestling and AAA and really good lucha wrestling is just so awesome. But really bad lucha wrestling is worse than the worst American wrestling.
Absolutely. Yeah.
By far.
Yeah. No, I've seen some stuff at Arena Mexico that and some just some matches, live matches that I've seen that are that when it falls apart, I mean it's worse than anything. I mean, like I've seen that famous Jackie Gaeta match that everybody talks about. I mean, I've seen so many matches equally as bad, if not worse, of Lucha Libre. But then
Jackie Gaeta missed 2 spots, but like a bad choreographed lucha match, it would be like an entire match of just one blown spot after another.
I've seen those.
Yeah.
Let's go to Tom in Atlanta. Tom, what's going on?
Hey, gentlemen. I was wondering, as far as Triple H as a draw, if Austin is the best draw at number 1 and Nash was the worst drawing champion at 10, where would Triple H fit under that? Well,
when he was champion and things were hot, he was, they were drawing tremendously. I would say Hogan and Austin would be the biggest.
Right.
And then maybe Rock, and then probably Triple H, probably 4th of all the champions that they ever had.
No, you have to look at it as Hogan and Austin. They were the guys, when they got over, it was them drawing some money, and they were turning the company around. Whereas Hunter ended up a guy that was on top at a period when it was hot, and it would have been very hard for him not to draw money.
Yeah.
Unless he was a...
And then right now, if he got the belt right now, well, he does have that one belt right now, and they're not drawing at all, so... he may end up. I'll tell you what. I mean, when you look at the attendance figures they're doing now,
you could carry some of the blame for that, no?
No, but I mean, no. Realistically, the guys now, Lesnar and Triple H. I mean, they're going to approach Nash. Nash level, if you really think about it. I mean, because they're doing 2,000 people a night.
But then at the same time, I can't really blame Brock for that, and I don't know if I can blame Hunter, but he's been around longer, so maybe you can.
You can't blame anyone. No, it's the state of it's the state of the business.
It's so bad right now that anybody on top probably wouldn't mean anything.
Yeah,
I don't know, guys. I saw it once that Raw came on and Hunter came out, and I was in for another 20-minute show. He's got to carry some of the blame for the poor ratings of that show, if not a great deal of the ratings for,
I think that he deserves some blame for the ratings of the show Monday.
Right.
I think that opening segment was atrocious.
20-minute speeches he gives. Oh my God.
Yeah, that one was one of the worst because
the puppet show.
Because he was out there trying to be funny and nobody was laughing, and when something's failing and you can see it with the live crowd and you feel it watching it at home, and then you see the ratings not grow at all during the whole show until the finish. That first segment was real bad.
And then the next week they come back and they yell at you for not liking it.
Yeah.
I was just reading about the Halloween show they did for like this. We'll do it again next year. And I thought, how come in Japan they do that? And in America they go, if you don't like this, we're going to give you something even worse next week.
Yeah.
Until you appreciate it.
Well, we're going to find out because there's the one thing about the rating this week as far as the Raw was that the fans did speak, and they have to to listen ultimately to the fans, and they know that. And I just wonder what kind of. I really am curious what kind of a show Raw is going to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
I wonder if Steiner will be on.
I hope so. Christ, they got to get some new blood in there quick.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would like them. I'd like them to at least keep Steiner off until the Survivor Series, but they're not good at that.
One final question.
And they have to listen ultimately to the fans, and they know that. And I just wonder what kind of. I really am curious what kind of a show Raw is going to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
I wonder if Steiner will be on. I
hope so. Christ, they got to get some new blood in there quick.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would like them to at least keep Steiner off until the Survivor Series, but they're not good at that.
One final question. I haven't seen a poor use of a wrestler since with Ric Flair, since Rick Rude was just like.
Yes, there was nothing they could do with him. He really couldn't wrestle.
Right.
So, I mean, I thought that was actually, I thought they actually got more use out of Rick Rude than I expected. As far as Ric Flair.
Especially that night he was on both shows.
That guy, I tell you what, Eric Bischoff, that was an example of just pure, unadulterated stupidity. Eric Bischoff, I don't remember how much money it was, but it was, several $100,000 for 3 years, a lot more than $300,000, just to embarrass Vince McMahon.
Right.
He signed this guy who couldn't wrestle, who really couldn't do much of anything and was completely useless. By that point in his career, Ric Flair, it's just sad because, Ric Flair, I mean, everybody, when Ric Flair came in there, everybody knew, everybody was pretty much, okay, this is what you do. You make him a baby face, you have him wrestle 3-4 times a year, you have him do lots of really good interviews on television, never wrestle him on television. And they did the exact opposite. He did all these matches. He did hardly any interviews. When he did interviews, they scripted the interviews instead of let him do Ric Flair interviews, which is what people wanted to see. And now, I mean, he's become, for a while there, was the biggest draw on that show, ratings-wise, and he's become someone that people don't want to see. And I'll tell you what, it takes a talent of booking to make people, not want to watch Ric Flair.
Yeah.
But he shouldn't have been wrestling every week. And, I cringe when I watch him wrestle now, too, and it's really sad because he was...
Maybe he could just do a lot of the talking, something like that.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think he'll be the manager of Hunter for a while.
Gentlemen, have a good night.
Okay, thanks a bunch, Tom. Let's go to Alan in Deerfield Beach, Florida.
How's it going?
It's going good.
Great. I enjoyed the show last week with Piper. I just read the book. I think it's excellent. Did you get a chance to pick it up yet?
I don't have the book, no. I'm waiting to get it.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding you.
Oh,
why would I kid you?
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to ask you about the book, but maybe you know stuff about the past. I mean, Piper and saying that he didn't want a job to Hogan and some
Piper. I don't think Piper jobbed to Hogan until the WCW days.
And that there was a lot of tension between them.
I believe that there was to the point where Hogan. I think that in other aspects,
mm-hmm.
I think that they knew they needed each other because those two guys really. Put the thing on the map, I think. Piper doesn't get the credit, but I mean, I remember watching that thing in '85 when the thing really turned around, and it was really Hogan and Piper together. With was it the War that settled the score or something, or Brawl? The MTV stuff, and the first WrestleMania. Piper's interviews really got that thing going. I mean, that's why Mr. T and Hogan got over so good was because Roddy Piper did those interviews.
That's what he says. He says that they didn't really like each other. He talks about Mr. T not liking him.
I don't know, but I know that when they trained, I know that when they finally had that match at the second WrestleMania, matches of all time, but that was probably just because Mr. T wasn't, he wasn't a wrestler or a boxer, and it's really hard to do. It's really hard to do a work boxing match.
Right. Do you think he's being accurate in the book, or?
I haven't read the book. Can't tell you.
No. Well, I mean, from what you know, does that sound pretty accurate, or?
That there was tension? I don't know. Back then, I never heard of intense tension between Hogan and Piper. I'm sure that there was in that Piper never lost to Hogan, and I'm sure, when Hogan, he probably wanted to beat him. But at the same time, Hogan had to be thankful for him because, he was one of the big, he really got the thing going. As far as Piper and Mr. T, I never heard. I don't know.
There's also a story about Cyndi. I don't want to spoil the book for you. Cyndi Lauper, he was going to kick her for real. But he decided to laugh.
Oh, no, I think he talked about that in one of his deals. He just goes, someone came up to him and said, if you end her career, you've made yours.
Yeah, and he said he had to really think about it, and
I don't think he really had to think about it.
I don't think that he did that because she helped make them too, and do something like that.
It would have been career suicide.
I don't know if it would have been career suicide. I mean, because, you know, things that should be career suicide in wrestling often get the guy over. But as far as Vince goes, I think Vince would have to fire him, and I think there'd probably be, like, massive lawsuits against Vince if anything like that happened. You know, I mean, by them, I mean huge. So it wouldn't have been a good idea. I mean, I'm glad it didn't happen. I don't think that it ever was going to happen. Stuff very, very rarely happens. I mean, happens what Akira Maeda and Riki Choshu. I mean, you know, it just doesn't happen very often. Anyway, we've got to go head to a break. We'll be back with more right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Hello, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly, and we're here for 2 hours every Sunday night from 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific, 10 to midnight Eastern Time, heard around the world on Sports Byline USA, as well as Sirius Satellite Radio, Channel 123. And we got a full bank of phone calls. Brian, we were, just talking about double crosses and everything in the ring. The pretty much famous Akira Maeda, Riki Choshu, and actually Akira Maeda, Andre the Giant. Can you, I don't even really remember, like, a physical double cross. I mean, everyone knows the Bret Hart thing, which was not a physical attempt to injure someone double cross in the ring.
Except when he punched him.
When he punched Vince McMahon, but that wasn't in the ring.
Yeah.
I can't really even recall. There must have been others. I mean, I've seen guys wrestle around, you know, and get mad and kind of bully each other, but, you know, just someone who, like intentionally tried to injure someone while working.
Yeah, I can't think of any.
I mean, not high profile. There's a thing in wrestling where, you know, you don't do it in the ring. But, you know, this is, again, also a business where, you know, people who have done that actually, like, if Piper would have done that, I mean, he might have been fired by Vince McMahon. He probably would have been hired immediately by Jim Crockett at the time, and his career would have flourished because he was too tough for, you know, people would have said he was too tough for the WWF or something. I mean, it actually probably would have. He probably would have paid a ton of money in a lawsuit, too.
That's true.
Because she was rich and, you know.
Yeah.
So, anyway. But I don't believe that there was ever any significant chance something like that would happen. Let's go to Jim in Edison, New Jersey. Jim, how are you?
How you doing, guys? Doing
really good.
Do you think Scott Steiner is going to wrestle Survivor Series?
I hope not, because I think it would be too soon. I think he should be at Survivor Series. To me, that's where Survivor Series.
Isn't Confidential doing a thing on him next week, too?
Yes, Saturday night. They sure are.
Do you think, what's going to go on with Bischoff and Stephanie now?
I don't know. I hope it's something good, because I hope they have, like, a really good storyline, and it probably involves them uniting against Vince, maybe, at some point. Do you think that might be it?
Sounds very interesting.
What?
Sounds very interesting.
I hope so. I mean, God, we need an interesting storyline like that.
It will be interesting in front of and behind the cameras, I would suspect.
Yeah, the only thing is, Eric Bischoff against Vince McMahon is something new and actually something that I would kind of find interesting. But, you know, again, you're throwing Stephanie in there, and Stephanie against Vince McMahon is something that we've seen on many layers and levels for years. We'll see that one again.
The thing I look at is, okay, if they're going to do Vince versus Eric, okay, that means that eventually Eric is going to lose.
Oh, without a doubt.
And then what happens to him? He's done for unless he can find some way to be there longer.
Well, Heyman did. I mean, Heyman, you know, remember Heyman was gone?
Yeah.
And, you know, a couple months later, they just brought him back as Brock Lesnar's manager. They could bring, you know, Eric can go home for a couple months, bring him back as a manager of, you know, Bob Sapp or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
Bob Sapp.
Yeah.
Is there any news on Hogan at all?
As far as Hogan and WWF are done forever as of right now. Forever, of course, means until they need each other.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, done.
Okay.
Although he's going to be making some, you know, he's got to make some. But as far as, like, on TV wrestling, as of now, nothing's going on.
All right, guys, you have a good night.
Okay, thanks very much.
Imagine, like, Hogan going out after this book comes out and signing a deal to do an independent book independently.
Could you see that? Yes.
I would not be surprised at all. Just like going, okay, this is the book WWF didn't want published, and there you go.
But then he's going to have a really good book, and I don't know that he really wants to have a really good book.
Yeah.
I don't know that he wants to be that controversial.
Yeah.
Or maybe. I mean, if Hulk Hogan told a book, if Hulk Hogan wanted to do a book, you know, where he buried Vince McMahon and went on, you know, I mean, he would get a ton of attention doing it. But you know what? I don't think that he ever wants to go that far.
Yeah.
I think, you know, whatever Hogan and Vince have, Vince won't be afraid to bury Hogan publicly, if need be, because he's done it before. But I think that Hogan, in that sense of the two of them, I think Hogan's a lot more mature, because I think Hogan understands that deep down I think Vince, like with Austin, one of the things that frustrated me during when the Austin thing fell apart was we all knew that there would come a day where Vince.
If you'd like to make a call.
What's going on here?
Oh.
Well, whatever.
There we go.
Okay. Well, anyway, we all knew that there would come a day like today where Vince really wants Austin back.
Yeah.
And doing all that burial of him publicly served nobody's purpose. And I think that Hogan understands that there will come a day where he probably, will want to come back to Vince. Probably saw it because Crusher kept coming back till he was 60. And so I think he never wants to burn that bridge. Whereas Vince, I think Vince just gets mad at people and says, burn that bridge. I never want that guy back. And then,
I really think that he believes that, too, that when the Austin thing went down, he thought, well,
I will never bring him back.
Guy, I don't care to ever see him again.
Yeah, but, I thought that he would never, I think he thought, certainly in 1994, that he would never bring Hogan back.
Yeah.
Or to bring Savage back, which he never brought back, but I think if Savage would have, come in at a cheap enough price, he would have brought him back without any question. Certainly, Bret Hart. I'm sure he thought he would, especially during the lawsuit and everything with over Owen. I think in his mind, he would never in a million years bring Bret Hart back. And obviously we know that he would.
Laws that he never learns lessons from anything.
From himself.
Yeah.
Maybe.
There's a million examples of guys he's fired and he's ended up bringing them back, but he never learns from it. I mean, look at the XFL debacle and everything from the fact that it failed to using the term work in progress. He learned nothing from it. And, it's just one thing after another.
Yeah. Let's go to Jonathan in Savannah, Georgia. Jonathan, what's going on?
Hey, not much, guys. I had, a couple questions for you. My first question was I want to know, why is Raven relegated to Heat?
And, everything from the fact that it failed to using the term work in progress. He learned nothing from it. And, it's just one thing after another.
Yeah. Let's go to Jonathan in Savannah, Georgia. Jonathan, what's going on?
Hey, not much, guys. I had a couple questions for you. My first question was I want to know, why is Raven relegated to Heat?
Because he lost a loser never wrestles on Raw again match to Tommy Dreamer. It was act push on Raw. What he would do is become the star of Heat because there's a lot less competition there, and that would get him over. And I think he realized that he made a big mistake.
1 million people.
What?
They got him over with 1 million people.
It didn't even get him over with them because nobody's, because people who watch Heat see it as like a B show, and a star on a B show doesn't get over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it was actually his idea, and it didn't work.
Okay. My other question was, do you think like a guy like Booker T or any other like mid-card babyface is going to get any kind of push in the near future?
They have to, don't they? I mean, someone who's got to.
You know what? We've been thinking that for like a year now.
Yeah. I don't think that management, unfortunately, has enough confidence in a lot of these guys. And the public, I think, has seen that. And so now the public doesn't have the confidence in these guys either. And that's why business is where it is right now.
Yeah. But even with a guy like Booker T, people actually get out of their seats to actually kind of watch. I mean, when you watch
people definitely like him, but I don't know that like if he was put in the main event it would draw. But I mean,
not right now, but maybe when they first did the split, if they would have made him the top.
Oh yeah. If they would have pushed him to the moon when they first got him, of course he could have been a superstar. He's got charisma and he's a good wrestler.
Got him right when they first split Raw.
Yeah, a lot of those guys. I mean, even 6 weeks ago, if they just said we're going to shoot this guy to the top because. Yeah, he's one guy who can, get the crowd going, and he's got the potential to be. Many people believe me. I hear it all the time from people internally and externally, about Booker T being, Booker T and Rob Van Dam being totally wasted, and they are.
Yeah. My last question was, do you know if there are any what the plans are right now for Guido and Spanky?
Just to be on SmackDown, and as far as when they debut, I don't really know. Like Spanky finished up his Japanese commitments about. What was it, on October 26th, I think it was his last day. And Guido, doesn't have anything except for some, I don't know, he may have some indies or anything. But, just whenever Heyman, can come up with an idea to get them into the show, they'll be in, and it probably won't be all that long.
Okay.
Okay?
That was it. Thanks.
All right, you're very welcome. We'll go to Steve in Concord, California. Steve, what's going on?
How are you doing?
I'm doing really good.
Okay, first I had a comment about Piper. I grew up in the 80s, and when I think of good stuff from the 80s, I usually think of Piper's Pit in the NWA. And I just got a tape that's all Piper's Pit stuff, and I think some of that's like the greatest comedy of the 80s. I might just be saying that as a wrestling fan, but I love it. Well, my second question is I'd heard of a situation about WCW and NWA breaking up over Chono.
Not over Chono.
Oh, okay.
WCW and NWA broke up twice. Once was in 1991 when Bird fired Ric Flair.
Okay.
And the other time was 1994 when WCW decided to make Rick Rude world champion, beating Ric Flair, and they didn't inform the NWA that they were going to change the NWA title, and the NWA and WCW at that point just pulled out of the NWA over the fight and just said, we don't need these promoters that actually don't promote wrestling shows dictating to us, what we're going to do, and that was the second split. I think it was like 1993 when that happened.
Yeah, I got it. Also, could you who do you think the best top 3 workers in Japan are right now?
Right now?
Yeah.
Satoshi Kojima.
Yeah.
Maybe Yuji Nagata.
What about Tiger Mask?
Tiger Mask is excellent.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, he's right up there. A lot of the junior heavyweights are really good. Minoru Tanaka I don't know what's happened to him lately. He's kind of fallen off. Shima, Kaz Hayashi. I just watched a match with Kaz Hayashi just before the show. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's great. I've gotten some of his new stuff too.
Yeah.
Hey, does Fujita still live in Pennsylvania?
Minoru Fujita?
Yeah.
No, he's moved. He's back in Japan wrestling for Taka Michinoku.
Okay.
Yeah, he hasn't been in the United States in a long time. He went to Puerto Rico for a while, and then he moved back to Japan.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah.
Okay, have a good one, man.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. We've got 2 lines open right now at 1-800-878-PLAY, so you can hop on board. Talking wrestling till about 20 after the hour, and then we'll be going to Dana White and the Ultimate Fighting Championship. We're going to go to Jay in Atlanta. Jay, we're going to have to hit a break in just a couple of minutes, so ask the question. We'll hold you over after the break, okay?
Okay, buddy. 2 things. One, do you think they'll ever end the brand extension and perhaps bring an ECW-type format back on SmackDown? And 2, what are you guys hearing on Austin? Chance of him coming back?
Well, there's always a chance of him coming back. As far as movement of him coming back, there isn't any right now. But, with Royal Rumble coming up and that leading to WrestleMania, a lot of people can sort of see the idea that, Vince may go, okay, it's time.
Remember, he promised that he would be the first entrance.
Austin?
Remember that promo from last year?
From last year, after he got eliminated from the Royal Rumble the next day, yeah.
Yep.
So, they could.
Test can be fired in about 3 weeks now.
That's right. Hold on. Jay, let's keep Jay on the line. We'll go back to him right after the break, okay? Okay, you're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. We're going to have Dana White, president of the UFC, up about 20 minutes after the hour. We'll be taking your phone calls. And I also remind everyone that Wednesday on Fox Sports Net's Best Damn Sports Show, period, hour, formerly known as China, showing clips from Japan, from the Tokyo Dome and the match with Masahiro Chono. But also Brian Adams and Randy Savage will be on talking about Brian Adams' pro boxing debut, which will be on November the 16th. So that's a show that you might want to miss. Did I say that right?
How can you say that?
What?
How can you say that?
Maybe it'll be good. I don't know. I don't know. Let's get back to Jay. Jay, what's going on? Jay, what's up?
My second question was, do you think they'll end this brand extension anytime soon and perhaps bring an ECW-type format back to maybe like a SmackDown? Give some of these mid-card guys or old ECW guys get back into the spotlight.
That was the whole idea of this brand extension, was to give more guys a chance to be in the spotlight. And, realistically, it hasn't created one new star. The only new star that's been created since the brand extension was Brock Lesnar, and he would have been created even if there was no brand extension. So, in theory, that's what it should have accomplished and didn't already. As far as this one and then coming back with an ECW, I doubt it, but I would never rule it out 100%. I'm sure that there are forces at work that would, want it to happen.
Because it's got quite a good cult.
It's got a great cult following. It would have been really effective a year ago, when they and WWF and kept 3 of them separate, for a year. I think that would have been a tremendous thing. But, Brian and I will be talking about that for the rest of our lives, about the year of 2001 and the booking of the WWF, especially if WWF never comes back to prominence, because that's going to be one of the main reasons.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, you're very welcome. We'll be back with more phone calls right after our hourly break. Listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. We'll be back with Dana White also in the second hour talking about UFC. So we'll see you right after the news.
Let's get it on.
Okay, welcome to the second hour here on Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. And we're here for 2 hours every Sunday night from 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 to midnight Eastern Time. And Brian, I wanted to ask you, because I actually only got to see the first hour of SmackDown because I was out of town. And, Brian, what were your thoughts of the SmackDown show? I mean, as far as just the show in general. Hello there.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I enjoyed the show top to bottom, just from the, just on the show. The one thing was Angle and Eddie Guerrero. I do not want to run down that match for either guy, but when it was over, it was one of those matches where I just thought, this should have been a hell of a lot better than it actually was.
Really? Because that I didn't see. I saw everything up to that match.
Yeah, in fact, I think that something might have happened to Angle, because there was this point in the middle of the match where they went from one ref's hold to another for what seemed like 5 minutes, and it really slowed it down, and it kind of fell apart at that point. But, I mean, it's hard for those guys to have a bad match. In fact, I think it's probably impossible. But watching this match, you would probably have been a little disappointed with it. But, that's not to say it was bad or anything like that. And like, top Benoit Edge match was awesome, and the Brock and Ray match for Brock and Ray, they did about as good as you could possibly do. And they fit Big Show in there. They didn't beat Ray, so they can always do that match again at some point. And, top to bottom, good show. And the worst thing was obviously the women. They did the match in the mud, which you probably...
I did see that.
Yeah.
The one, I had, when I was watching the show, one of the things, the big hallmark of SmackDown has been, that, you have a lot of good wrestling and angles, and it's more of an, I don't want to say, an old-fashioned show in many ways with, maybe new-fashioned production.
Which I think is a secret.
It may be. Now, the thing on it was they were doing all those Halloween skits, and I didn't mind them, because it's not like the whole show is skits. I thought that John Cena at least got a chance to talk, But when I was watching the Halloween skits, I kept thinking, this is, Saturday Night's Main Event from the 80s, and it just seemed, it wasn't like so much bad as out of place.
Well, there was kind of a point to it, because at the end of the show, they did the deal at the beginning where Benoit went looking for Angle, and Angle was in disguise. And then later, Angle went looking for Benoit, and he saw a dude in the same disguise, but it wasn't Benoit, and Benoit attacked him. They had this cool brawl at the party. And I guess it put over that these two guys, when they're mad, everybody is afraid of them, and they're not jokes. Point to it, but it was more just for comedy than anything else. Okay, we've got to go ahead to a break. We're going to start taking more phone calls right after this. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
Wrestling Observer Live with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez. Two guys who eat, sleep, and drink pro wrestling, even when it doesn't taste good.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. And actually, we have a caller who's called up about Bret Hart. I want to remind everyone, Dana White, president of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, will be our guest in just a couple of minutes. We'll be talking about the Ken Shamrock-Tito Ortiz match, as well as the rest of that card on November 22nd from the MGM Grand in Vegas. And, of course, live UFC pay-per-view in many years, no doubt about that. Biggest match in UFC in, I don't know, how long you figure, Brian? 3 to 5 years?
I would say...
Yeah, we can
talk since they lost the cable.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be the biggest one, and we'll talk a lot about that. And Brian and
I'm totally shocked by the number of people that I know that are dying to see the show.
Oh, you know what's funny is it's the same with me when people who are like that are only like into something like the big Tyson fight, like Tyson and Lewis or something like that. That a lot of people the names mean something.
Yeah.
And these are people like, Brian, you talked about the last UFC. your friends just weren't interested in seeing that UFC, even though on paper it was all great fights.
Wanted to see, and in fact, the weird thing is, a lot of the people that I know that are ready to get this pay-per-view are, well, I don't want to say former wrestling fans, but they don't care enough to buy wrestling pay-per-views anymore, but they want to see this fight.
Yeah, well, we're going to go to Dan in Chicago. Dan, what's happening?
What's happening, guys? How you doing?
Doing pretty good.
I got a question about Bret Hart, like you were saying. I've heard a rumor. I went to ProWrestling.com, and they were saying that there's a good possibility that he's going to be in the WWE soon.
You know what happens is people read the Observer and then post stuff, and they don't read it close enough.
Okay.
Vince would want him back, but it wouldn't stun me for him to make one appearance. The idea that he will be back as a character,
I heard
he just won't do it.
I heard Bret's like kind of over everything though, from what I hear.
It's got nothing to do with over everything. Bret Hart had a stroke.
Yeah.
Bret Hart retired from wrestling. He really, when he retired, he meant it. Even though he did come back and do some interviews and things like that, it was like guest appearances. The idea that he may show up on a Raw or something like that for a one-time deal wouldn't shock me at all. In fact,
a big pay-per-view from Calgary.
Yeah, something like that. But as far as being a regular weekly character, he doesn't want to travel, every week.
Because my friends and I, we want to see a matchup with Bret Hart and Vince McMahon.
Never happened. Never in a million years. Bret Hart had a stroke. He can't wrestle.
Well, I was asking about that. Is he getting any better? Or
he's making great progress, but the idea that he can do a wrestling match.
That is sad. I'm sorry to hear about that.
Yeah.
I'm a big Bret Hart fan.
Yeah, in fact, I think we should try to. I'm not sure, when we can do that, but I'm going to try to get him back on the show.
I was just going to ask you about that too.
Yeah, I think we should. I'll try to get him back on the show when he's ready to do that.
I wanted to thank you for letting me talk to Roddy Piper last week.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I just wish you would have archives of the show so I could, put a CD burner on it.
Yeah, I wish.
Is there any way you guys are ever going to do that again?
Check with the people at Sports Byline because it's out of my hands. I would love for it,
Okay.
I'd love for archives to be up all week like we used to have.
And listen, the question about the CD that's coming out, do you know if they're going to have NWO music?
Probably. They got like 86 or something tracks on it, so I would.
Survivor Series. They said it's going to be like a War Games type thing.
It's going to be a combination War Games,
Royal Rumble, and
Elimination Tag.
And a double ring?
I don't know. They're going to announce tomorrow. They're going to announce tomorrow night.
Okay.
They're building a structure, so it's going to be a weird cage. That much I know.
So definitely, then you were talking about Hogan. When was that announced that he's definitely done with the WWE?
It hasn't been announced, but he's definitely done with WWE.
Are you going to have him on?
Hogan?
Yeah. Are you guys buddies?
Probably not, but maybe I'll ask.
That'd be kind of cool.
Just for fun. Just so I can get turned down.
Why, you think he's not big on that, or?
Hogan? Nah, Hogan's not going to do the show.
Give it a try.
Okay, I will.
And you guys are great.
Okay, thanks very much.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Let's go to Sean in Montreal. Sean, what's happening?
Hey, Dave, how's it going?
It's going pretty good.
Okay, about Scott Steiner?
Yes.
Well, he will be at the Survivor Series on pay-per-view, right?
I certainly expect it. I have not been told that 100%. I don't know. It just seems to make sense to me that he would be. But he's going to be debuting within the next couple of weeks, if not maybe even tomorrow.
Tomorrow night already?
Maybe. I don't. No one's told me when he's debuting. I just know that it's coming very soon. It's not going to be like a month away. It's going to be a couple of weeks away.
I think judging from how they normally do Confidential, if they're going to do a segment on him this weekend,
then he would probably debut the following Monday.
Yeah.
So or maybe they would hold a segment on Confidential. They might as well get him on Raw before Confidential.
Yeah. With Shawn Michaels in this pay-per-view match, do you think that him and Triple H will be the last two, and then Shawn will win the world title?
No.
No?
I think they may end up being the last two, and Hunter will beat him.
Why couldn't they have a match for WrestleMania coming up and just end it there? Because Shawn Michaels could go for 4 months, right?
I don't know if they would want to put the title on him because then he would have to, because he's not going to be running around on the house shows. They could do it for like a month or so, but I don't know. I don't see them putting the title on Shawn Michaels. I guess it's possible.
And Jericho's going to be the first one eliminated.
I don't know that.
Well, of course, they've done nothing with him, and he's just
Van Dam and Booker T are in there, too, so they could also be eliminated first.
Kane's very, very sad.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I really don't know how they're going to go with this.
And also, before you go, Hulk Hogan is going to be in the Madison Square Garden Hall of Fame. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. I think they're going to be inducting him on
December the 4th.
December the 4th, yes.
Yes, so what do you think of that? Do you think that's good or bad or whatever?
I don't think that, I think that he deserves it. I also think that if they were going to induct wrestlers in the Madison Square Garden Hall of Fame, that probably Bruno Sammartino and maybe Argentina Rocca and Billy Graham should have, and maybe even one or two others should have gone in. I would say Hogan deserves it, but I would say the first one who should have gone in as far as Madison Square Garden Hall of Fame should have been Bruno Sammartino. That's just my opinion.
Do you think Vince McMahon Jr. is jealous because Hogan made it in before him?
That's an interesting thing because Vince McMahon Jr. will be in the Madison Square Garden Hall of Fame and deserves to be in it, and his father's already in it, so.
Yeah?
Yes.
It might happen, but Hogan deserves to be in it, and
yes, he does.
And also, one of his funniest promos ever was at World War III. Do you remember that when he dissed you?
I remember that promo.
When
he burned the Observer, remember that? Yeah.
You know, I never saw that. I was very sad about that.
Really? Oh, it was insane. That was insanity, boy. Because he went up there and he just goes, you know, all you people think that Randy Savage has a torn tricep, but we worked all the boys just to get it in the newsletters. And then you got Randy Savage coming out, and one arm is like half the size of the other, and then he loses to an arm bar on the bad arm by Lex Luger. So it's like, pain. Yeah. It was absolute insanity.
And he called the Observer a dinosaur. I remember that.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Oh, maybe he did.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny, him calling that.
And then now
him of all people, but no.
And Brian.
Yeah.
Are you going to WrestleMania?
I probably will. Yeah.
Will you have good seats? Will they give you good seats, or are you just like Brian Alvarez, so they'll give you sort of good seats?
They're not giving anybody seats now. Although last two times I got comp tickets, once I was in the very front row, and the second time I was so high up in the Tacoma Dome that I could touch the ceiling.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a toss-up.
Are you guys respected from the WWE because you guys are the only real wrestling media out there? Like,
are we respected? You have to ask different people. Officially, no.
No.
Unofficially, yes. I guess would probably be the best way to put it.
Referees and guys that set up the ring, but not by Vince McMahon himself or the family.
I don't think Vince McMahon particularly likes it, but I mean, you know, Vince McMahon and I have had ups and downs for 20 years. So, and we'll have ups again in the future and downs.
Well, you know, it will be a good thing if he ever makes fun of you on TV.
He won't. He doesn't operate that way.
Yeah, he does. RTC, IRS, all that sort of stuff.
That was a lot more high profile.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're never that high profile?
You don't think there'll be a Brian Meltzer character?
No, that's something Herb Abrams would have done. Vince McMahon ain't going to do that.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, we got to get going.
Thanks.
Okay, Travis, what's going on?
Wow.
Hello?
Hey, Travis, this is Travis in L.A. What's going on?
Dave, hey, it's Travis from Blind Date.
How you doing?
Good, how are you doing?
Doing really good.
I sent your tape out Friday, so hopefully you'll get it tomorrow or Tuesday at the latest so you can preview it in your next article.
Okay, so I'll just let everyone know that from November 11th to November 15th, there will be WWE wrestlers on Blind Date all 5 nights, right?
Exactly. You got my email, right?
Yes, I did.
About the mix-up of Hurricane?
Yeah. There was they thought, what was the deal? Someone thought that Hurricane was in it, but it was actually some guy who looked like Hurricane that wasn't.
Yeah, it was a guy. He could literally be the twin for Hurricane, and it turned out he was actually on Human. But because Jamie Noble kept calling in.
Mm-hmm.
But actually the show was really good. Like I said, Jackie came off as if she's been in the company for 10 years. She was totally conceited to the guy. She was a complete bitch, to excuse my language.
Jackie Gaeta, not Jacqueline Moore, right?
No, Jackie Gaeta, correct.
Okay, just wanted everyone to know that. Okay.
Yeah, it was sad. I mean,
I'm sure she thought her boyfriend might be watching.
Yeah, but all shows were great. Hopefully the ratings will boost up. I'm sure they will because when Jenny Lane was on, the ratings went up for that. So.
And these guys are a lot more high profile than Jenny Lane.
Oh yes, way high more.
Well, Jenny Lane's one of your most famous shows, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was actually our highest rated show. Your show that season.
Yeah, I remember that show. I haven't seen a lot of Blind Date, but I saw the Jenny Lane show, and I've actually.
Yeah, but all shows were great. Hopefully the ratings will boost up. I'm sure they will because when Jenny Lane was on, the ratings went up for that. So.
And these guys are a lot more high profile than Jenny Lane.
Oh yes, way high more.
Well, Jenny Lane's one of your most famous shows, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was actually our highest rated show that season.
Yeah, I remember that show. I haven't seen a lot of a lot of Blind Dates, but I saw the Jenny Lane show, and it was actually kind of cool. The guy ended up getting all of our friends that were wrestlers.
Yeah. But yeah, it was they were really successful. I believe Jim Ross is going to plug it on his Ross Report this Friday.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully they'll say something this week on SmackDown about. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, hopefully you'll get the tape by Tuesday at the latest, where you can preview it.
Okay, cool.
And all that good stuff.
All right, I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
Okay, you're very welcome. That's right. That's Blind Date, November 11th to the 15th. We got to go take a break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. We're going to be joined in just a second by Dana White, the president of Zuffa Ultimate Fighting Championship, talking about the Shamrock Tito Ortiz match, among other things, as well as everything that's going on in the UFC. We also want to remind everyone, if you're looking for the latest news on pro wrestling and mixed martial arts, you can always go to www.wrestlingobserver.com, and there's information. We always have headlines up every morning, as well as information that has subscribed to both the Wrestling Observer and Figure 4 Weekly, and we both cover both pro wrestling and mixed martial arts very extensively, as a matter of fact, because this is going to be, without question, in a couple of weeks, will be the biggest weekend in the history of mixed martial arts in the United States as far as pay-per-view goes, because we're going to have a Friday night pay-per-view from UFC, which will be the Ken Shamrock Tito Ortiz match that we talked about, which is the biggest match that UFC has had as far as, I think, just people talking about it in maybe 5 years or longer, maybe, as long as, since they were taken off of cable and got back on, certainly it's the biggest match. And then Sunday from the Tokyo Dome, it's going to be the Pride Fighting Championships with Don Frye and Hidehiko Yoshida and Nobuhiko Takada and Kiyoshi Tamura, which is actually two pro wrestlers in the main. And it's going to be from the Tokyo Dome on a 17-hour delay. We've got Dana White on. Dana, how you doing tonight?
Great. How you doing, Dave?
Doing really good. You've been heading now UFC for just under 2 years. I guess why don't we start with your start there? UFC was run by Bob Meyerowitz. It was, of course, we all know the history from, in the mid-'90s. It was a real hot item on pay-per-view. Then it fell into a political disfavor, got taken off of many, many systems. And you were starting at probably about square one or two.
Square -2.
And had to rebuild this thing that was once popular, and you've got it. What's your thought? Because, we've talked about this before. You came in there, you got back on almost complete pay-per-view clearance in North America from almost no pay-per-view clearance. And then on your first show, you had a bad show. I mean, that, like you probably had since you've been involved, I think there have been, about 9-10 shows. And there's really only been one show, and it came at the worst time possible.
It's true. We came back and got full cable distribution. We had really a lot of momentum going from, where the old show had been. A lot of people were talking about it. A lot of people were excited it was back on pay-per-view. And we not only had the worst show, meaning the worst fights we've ever had, but we went over on the pay-per-view. The worst night of my life. And the odd part is I almost feel like we're back there now again. This is another one. That first show that we had was UFC 33 here in Vegas, first time ever sanctioned in Vegas, back on full cable distribution, and we were just all pumped up and ready for a good night. I think we were all a little cocky because we'd had nothing but great shows since we had bought the company, and it blew up in our face. And you can never pick how on paper fights can look great, but at the end of the night the fighters have to fight great fights. So that you can never control that, but I can guarantee you this will never go over on pay-per-view.
What percentage of people turned off by that first show do you think will come back because of the name value of the two guys on this show?
We talk about it all the time. We'll never really be able to gauge how bad we got hurt, how much money we lost, and how many people were totally turned off by that show. We'll never, ever be able to gauge it. All we can do is just, we've been building up momentum again, and we put together a great fight with two big names and a genuine grudge match with two guys that sincerely do not like each other. And there's a lot of hype and energy about it, and ticket sales have been phenomenal. and this is probably going to be not only the biggest one that we've done, but probably the biggest show in North America for MMA.
Now, we're right now in Vegas.
As of Friday, when I left the office Friday, we had sold over 8,000 tickets.
Yeah.
And I don't know what kind of a weekend we had. I won't know till probably 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. But
did you break $1 million yet on the gate?
I'm sorry?
Did you break $1 million on the gate yet?
You know what? I don't know that. Probably not, because the full gate, we had it scaled for almost 13,000, and we just opened up more and made it 14.5.
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you have any like big appearances like those guys were on Best Damn Sports Show, which I thought was quite a great plug. The only negative of their Best Damn Sports Show thing was that it was so far in advance. Actually, it was in advance of your last show. I mean, is there anything big coming up with those two guys?
Well, you know what? We've been hammering. We always do as far as PR goes. What we can't do is, we want the Conan O'Briens and we're out there trying to get those every day. Yes, it will be on the Best Damn Sports Show.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the bigger ones, we're working on it. We always hit the fighters' hometown markets, and we figured this would be the fight that we could possibly break on to like a Leno or at least a Conan O'Brien or Craig Kilborn or somebody. But we're working on it, and we've got a lot of good things going. Actually, Lorenzo and I both fly to Connecticut on Thursday, and are meeting with ESPN.
Oh, really?
So yeah, we want to talk about SportsCenter for this fight.
That's one of those breakthroughs. Where I've always thought that when you're gonna make it is when like the day of the pay-per-view and the day after the pay-per-view. It's kind of like you get the stuff in the sports section of the paper. Kind of like when the big boxing fights that we all talk about. The one thing that you're lacking that they have is that because boxing's been a part of the media for so long and it's got the track record and everything like that.
Right.
They'll have that, and you have to generate everything yourself. And you don't even have the TV. Now, one of the key things for the success of UFC ultimately is going to be if you can get television. And I know that you're talking to a lot of different people. Where does that stand right now?
We're working actually not only Fox Sports Net, who we did 2 shows with, plus the Best Damn Sports Show, but we've got some serious big-time networks talking with us right now. I'm very confident that we're going to have a free television show by March.
Do you have any kind of idea of like what type of television format you would do, like as far as would it be taped or live or
It would definitely be taped. I don't think free TV is fully comfortable right now with live UFC. Everybody's still a little afraid of the product. So it would definitely be taped, and it could be in a million different formats. It could be shows just like we did for the Best Damn Sports Show or Fox. It could be a reality-based show. We're working on a bunch of different concepts right now.
What was the idea for the shows that you did in the UK before the pay-per-view over there?
You know what? They were almost like the Fox show. They were like the Fox show.
Okay.
And you're on in Australia weekly as well because you got the SmackDown time slot there.
True. Yep, that's right. You know what's interesting too? When we first went over to the UK, our product was unfamiliar to them, except for hardcore fans, basically just like here. And it ended up being one of the highest rated shows in England. We beat out Major League Baseball, hockey, football, all of them. The only thing that was rated higher than us was WWF and
And it resulted in fans knowing what was going on at the live pay-per-view.
Right.
Yeah.
No, they were a great crowd.
Now
that place was great.
Now, do you have any plans as far as we always get the rumors of a show maybe in Australia since you have TV there, or possibly Japan since you've done shows from there in the past?
I would say the next place you'll see us first would be Japan.
Okay.
We're working on that right now.
When do you have a date and a place for the show after this Vegas show?
Yeah, it's probably going to be. It's tentatively right now February 28th in Atlantic City.
Atlantic City, okay. And do you have any kind of idea of where you want to go with that show, as far as like main events or anything like that?
You know what? We're still working on it. Nico will be a main event, and then of course Caro Uno and BJ Penn.
Okay. What's your thoughts as far as Ken Shamrock and Tito Ortiz? As far as this is the biggest fight that you've promoted since you've been in there, and what did it take to get Shamrock in? Because Tito's your guy, and you've been pushing him, and Ken, kind of outsider. He was like the big star in the original days of UFC.
Right.
And I know he wanted to fight in the United States because he hasn't really had a major fight in the United States in years.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, you'd be surprised. It was a lot easier to get Ken than a lot of people would imagine. I thought it was going to be a lot tougher too, but Ken's been very easy to work with, and he's actually really pumped up for this fight. My big, cross the fingers and toes thing was nobody gets hurt.
Yeah, you still got just only a couple of weeks left.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm still crossing my fingers and knocking on wood. Believe me, that would be devastating. But we have a backup plan right now. If either one of them got hurt, Chuck Liddell's ready to go, so he'd fight the other one.
Well, then you got a great main event either way. Dana, we got to take a commercial break. We're going to come back with more with Dana White right after this. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editing Observer Newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. And our guest tonight is Dana White, president of Zuffa Ultimate Fighting Championship. We're talking about the big show coming up on November 22nd in Las Vegas, as well as the state of the UFC. I want to really quickly run down the show. Aside from the Ken Shamrock Tito Ortiz match for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship, and Chuck Liddell will be most likely facing the winner of that fight, which is actually a really interesting fight no matter who wins. We're talking about the big show coming up on November 22nd in Las Vegas, as well as the state of the UFC. I want to really quickly run down the show. Aside from the Ken Shamrock Tito Ortiz match for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship, and Chuck Liddell will be most likely facing the winner of that fight, which is actually a really interesting fight no matter who wins.
And what does happen if Chuck loses?
Well, there you go.
Yeah, Chuck loses. He's not fighting the winner.
Chuck was the one who wanted the fight, wasn't it?
Yeah, you know what? I really didn't want this fight, and I thought it was easier to do this. The guy's got a guaranteed title shot of the winner of this fight, but Chuck's one of those guys. Chuck's a real fighter. He really is. A lot of guys talk it, but Chuck really, Chuck walks it.
But you gave him a guy who is no pushover, Renato Babalu Sobral. I mean, he's a champion wrestler.
Don't they have the same record, too?
Yeah, they do, I think. I think they're both 10-1 or 8-1 or something like that.
Yeah, but he's beaten some real good people that people would know. He pretty much hammered Maurice Smith, if I'm correct.
You're right. And
I think he's beaten Kiyoshi Tamura, who's a good fighter at his weight. You've got Vladimir Matyushenko, who is a hell of a wrestler. That's going to be a tough fight.
That's going to be a very good fight.
Yeah, Carlos Newton, who's one of my favorite fighters to watch, really slick submission guy, against Pete Spratt, who looked really good a couple of shows back.
Yep.
Of course, the welterweight championship, Matt Hughes against Gilbert Castillo, and Matt Hughes is he's just one of those mentally tough Iowa wrestlers who just so strong. I mean, when he fought Carlos Newton the second time, first time they had a classic match, second time he just physically overpowered him.
Absolutely dominated him. Ever since he won the title, it seems like he's got so much confidence right now. He's going to be very tough for anybody to beat.
And then Robbie Lawler, who has had some incredible matches. Robbie Lawler, Aaron Riley, one of the best matches of the year.
Yep.
Ian Freeman coming off the big win over Frank Mir in England against Andrei Orlovsky. And Mark Weir, who looked incredible in England. He knocked out Eugene Jackson in like 10 seconds against Paul Miller. So now, which fights? What's the schedule? Which are the fights that are going to go on live, and which are the fights that are going to be taped?
The first fight that's going to be live on pay-per-view is Tiki and Robbie Lawler.
Okay.
And I think it goes Carlos Newton and Pete Spratt, Matt Hughes and Gil Castillo, Chuck and Babalu, and then I think we have a swing bout in there, which is going to be Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tito and Ken, and the other ones will be undercard.
Now, what was I going to say? What would be in the nearly 2 years you've been running the company? What would be your frustration?
Fighter contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Renegotiating fighter contracts. These guys are very small-sighted. They don't see the big picture. And it's no big secret that we've had trouble holding on to some of our champions. The funny part is these guys go out and, you know, say they don't want to fight. You know, they end up making other deals. They'll go to Japan or whatever their deal is, and then they want to come back after they fought once, you know. And we've already moved on, and it's tough. You know, it's really tough. I'd say that's my most frustrating part of the business.
With Josh Barnett, from him winning the championship, testing positive for steroids, you guys having the big contract problems at roughly the same time. You kind of, gave a guy a title shot, and I mean, a lot of people probably are not familiar with how that all went down, but Josh Barnett's management, Matt Hume, asked for, I don't know what the number was, but something like $1 million. It was a ridiculous amount of money for a fight.
$1.2 million to show, $700,000 to win.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
you don't see any boxers that are making that, unless you're a huge name with, in a huge fight.
What do you say when somebody comes to you? I mean, you have a certain budget, that you've got to live within, or the thing's going to be otherwise that. What happens when when it's $5,000 or $10,000, there's haggling, but when someone comes with, when I heard that number, I'm going what are they thinking?
What I thought they were thinking is that, what they were telling me is we absolutely positively do not want to fight for you.
Yeah.
Under any circumstances.
Yeah.
That's what it meant to me. When somebody comes and says something absolutely insane like that, it meant to me that I don't want to fight for the UFC.
And speaking of guys leaving, what about Jens Pulver?
Yeah.
Anything new on him coming back, or?
Yeah, he calls me all the time, but right now, the position we're in right is we have the, Cara Uno and BJ Penn are going to fight for the title, and then we'll see what Jens, if we can slide Jens in there.
Yeah.
What's the situation with Murilo Bustamante and Phil Baroni right now?
Last I knew Friday, we're right there with Phil Baroni. Should have Baroni signed by Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And Bustamante, his manager Tatel has called me a couple of times, and I need to get back to him. But Bustamante wants crazy money too. So at the end of the day, these guys are paid very, very well. We try to do everything to treat them right and do the right things by them and get them the right kind of media. We're doing the best we can right now with where mixed martial arts is in this country. And guys are just coming at me with crazy numbers.
What, as far as dealing with the media, what's the biggest problem as far as that media breakthrough, media acceptance? I mean, is it the stigma of UFC, or is it just...
what, Dave? It's gotten so much better. I mean, it really, really has. A lot of people are really taking the sport serious now and really, how could they not? If you look at where boxing is right now and look where the UFC is right now, boxing doesn't sell any tickets. Floyd Mayweather, who's getting millions of dollars from Showtime or HBO, HBO, nobody shows up to see him fight. People could care less. People actually show up and pay for tickets to the UFC, and it's a different time. We're really starting to take us serious. Big networks are talking to us, et cetera, et cetera.
And
it's coming. We're right around the corner.
Do you think part of that is due to the downswing of boxing and wrestling, or is that actually a negative?
No, I really, to be honest, and I don't want to sound like I'm blowing my own horn, but tell me it's more exciting on pay-per-view than the UFC right now. Tell me a better live show to see right now than the UFC.
Well,
where you actually get entertained and there's, thousands of people going crazy and great fights and they're real, and I just don't see a better pay-per-view out there right now. Every year, if you're lucky, you'll get a boxing match to see,
Yeah.
But other than that, there's nothing on a regular basis on pay-per-view that's more exciting than the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
Certainly not anything that's sport, I would say. Although I'm a big fan of Pride. I consider Pride closer to pro wrestling. Now, recently, you were talking about that you really are not so much targeting pro wrestling fans as targeting fans of, say, boxing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been doing a lot of studies in the last 2 years, and we ended up when we first got into this, we figured that our fan was probably going to be a pro wrestling fan, but it's not at all. Our fan, we found out, is actually a boxing fan. Same guy that buys the UFC buys big boxing matches or a small box. It's a boxing fan. They spend more money for tickets to fights and travel and everything else. Our demo is more boxing, which is very interesting.
And how'd you do these surveys? Just
No, we do them through cable. We do them through cable studies.
Oh, as far as like the crossover buys, as far as yeah.
Exactly. A guy who buys the UFC, what other things did he purchase?
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly boxing. What other sporting events did he purchase?
Mm-hmm. That's interesting to know.
Yeah.
Let's go to Otto in Vancouver, British Columbia. Otto, what's going on?
Yeah, I want to talk about Bob Sapp.
Okay.
I want to know what everybody's thinking about that guy. Made a website about him. Like to get some people's input.
What are your thoughts on Bob Sapp?
Sounds like Bob Sapp on the phone.
I know.
I'm pretty close to Bob Sapp's size. I'm thinking about joining See Your Pride. I don't know yet.
It's funny you should ask me that question because somebody else asked me that question a little while ago, and all I really knew about Bob Sapp is that he was huge and that he had dropped Nogueira on his head. But I saw some video on him the other day. The guy's a monster. He's huge. If he fought in the UFC, he'd have to fight in super heavyweight. And there really aren't that many super heavyweights out there. I think Bob Sapp fits in perfect with with Japan and Pride because they can throw him in there with somebody like a Nogueira. He could never fight like Rico or most of the guys we have. I guess he could fight like
that'd be a good fight.
Yeah, or maybe a Tom Erickson type of a guy.
Tom Erickson, Bob Sapp, it's got to happen. Very good fight.
Yeah.
Pride's going to have to do that one because I don't think they're going to let Bob Sapp go for a long time. I heard they're doing a rematch with Nogueira again.
Are they really?
Yeah, that's got to make Nogueira think they're trying to get him beat.
Oh my God, I had not heard. I mean, I've heard the rumors of that, but I didn't hear anything official on that one.
Yeah, that's what I heard that they were doing the rematch.
Well, if anyone wants to check out Bob Sapp information, www.blacksnake.com.
Okay, you got your plug. We talk about Bob Sapp all the time because he's doing professional wrestling, kickboxing. That's a really interesting crossover there. In Japan, with Pride. I mean, again, Pride is pro wrestling oriented, whereas your show. You really don't have that. What? That's just a very different, difference between, professional wrestling in Japan as professional wrestling in the United States. Whereas in Japan, I think that the wrestling fans want that. They want to believe that there's some realism to them, and they like to see their wrestlers fight. Whereas here, the wrestlers can't and won't, and there's probably no purpose in doing it. Although I guess if you had them, you probably would do a decent buy rate among wrestling fans.
Yeah, well, I saw him do a TV show in Japan, and he was like biting the heads off semi-shield dolls and stuff. He's definitely wrestling. Pro wrestling.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's how they're marketing him and everything.
Right.
What about UFC for sale and all that? I mean, I know you get asked it all the time. What's the status?
I do, and my answer for that is, we hear these rumors. The UFC is not for sale. We're not out there trying to sell the UFC, but I bet your house isn't for sale either. But if somebody came and offered you the right money, you'd start packing.
Yeah.
But nothing is for sale and everything's for sale when you're in business. But no, we're not out pitching the UFC. And we've had offers. I know, we've probably had 6 or 7 offers since we bought the company. But
really,
we're not going anywhere. We like this and trying to make this thing work.
We got to head to a break. We'll be back with our final segment right after this. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer.
When everything's for sale when you're in business, but no, we're not out pitching the UFC. And we've had offers. I know, we've probably had 6 or 7 offers since we bought the company, but
really,
we're not going anywhere. We like this and trying to make this thing work.
We got to head to a break. We'll be back with our final segment right after this. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer. Okay, welcome to our final segment of the show here. We just got a couple of minutes left. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. Our guest tonight, Dana White, president of Zuffa, of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And Dana, what, aside from perhaps television, which we talked about earlier, what are your goals for the next year here for UFC?
Well, what we're focused on, the first 2 years we had a list of goals and we've knocked out most of them. Now what we're really focusing on is pay-per-view buys. We really want to focus on the pay-per-view we think they could be and should be. And we're working hard on putting this show together in Japan.
Now, how much revenue do you think that you can derive internationally? Because we know, like with WWE, with their business domestically going down, they're focusing more and more of their efforts on, Europe, Australia, and places like that. That you've had a presence in England before. You do have a presence in Australia now, and of course you do have a presence in Japan and Brazil.
Yeah, we're going to have our England things worked out too. There's just, the hard part is you go in and you have a successful show. It's just like the same thing that happened with Fox Sports Net. Then the negotiating begins. That's what people don't really understand is how long it really takes to negotiate and put deals together.
Oh, go ahead.
And when you see Vince get out there and throw together deals the way he does and it happens quick, you got to understand this is a guy who's had a very powerful machine for a long time. It's going to be a little while before we can throw together things as quick as he does.
How do the buy rates do as far as when you do international shows and have to tape delay them back to the U.S.?
What? The show we did in England was great. We were very happy with the England show. But that's really the only one we've ever done.
Yeah.
But it went well.
We're totally out of time, Dana. I want to thank you very much, and I want to wish you luck on the show on November 22nd from the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. It's Ken Shamrock, Tito Ortiz, the match that it's in months. I actually never thought it was going to happen, but it really is. And Matt Hughes and Gilbert Castillo, Carlos Newton, Pete Spratt. Real quick, Dana, your thoughts on Ken Shamrock and Tito Ortiz?
I think it's going to be a very interesting fight.
What do you think of the keys?
I think Boss Rutan put it the best. He said that the first 2 rounds are Tito's going to be in a lot of trouble. Anything from the third on is going to be all Tito. I would have to agree with that.
Because Brian and I usually agree on a lot of stuff. In this one, Brian says that Ken's going to win, and I say Tito's going to win. And we've been talking about that for a while now.
That's how everybody feels. It's one way or the other. But thank you guys very much. I appreciate it, and look forward to talking to you after the fight.
Okay, good luck. And we want to remind everyone we'll be back at 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.